What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Cover Band Confidential Podcast, the podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn some new tricks and to find a better way. Here in Atlanta, Georgia, I am Adam Johnson.
And here in Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
How's your week going so far?
You know what? I got a really killer job offer, and there is a second one that I'm very close to, and then I'll be able to compare and contrast and then be employed. So,
wow,
it's big movement on that.
That's a big, that's a big week.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
I'm drinking coffee during our podcast time, so that means that we are doing this in the morning. It is 9:30 a.m. officially on the dot, East Coast time. I've got like one amazing customer that I think will be a good source for the consulting firm.
Yeah.
If I could find 5 more, I would be set. But as of right now, I have 1. So I have been kind of spanking the planks, going around and dropping cards off at places that sell the kind of stuff that I am interested in working with, and just trying to drum up business. It has been a little trying. But I did actually, with my super customer, I gave her a discount on our last session, which was yesterday. I cut $50 off of one of my hours because she has a pretty sizable social media following. And I said, if you post a thank you to me on your Instagram to your 7,000 followers, I will cut you a deal. She was totally down with that. So
nice.
Hopefully a little exposure will help. And in the meantime, I'm doing what you're doing. I'm applying for work.
Yep.
I still haven't had my sit on my butt and watch TV all day yet.
I think I'm torn about whether that's worth doing. It's disorienting and kind of depressing to have that be what you're about for a day. But also a good decompress. And I think if you can find a way to do it that's not I'm doing this because everything is hopeless. Sure. It's probably worth doing.
That's fair. There have been times when I've been toying with the idea of setting up a Patreon account for this podcast. I don't know if it would necessarily drum up a ton of business, but it has crossed my mind a couple of times.
Sure.
We don't put a ton of time into this, but it is time out of our days, and maybe I'll just set one up and shoot the link out and just see what happens.
Yeah.
Could be something, could be nothing. I will say this. I did check our numbers, and it sounds like a few of you took our challenge to task because our numbers are up from last week.
Nice.
And upon looking through our record, because this is the 25th episode that we've done so far,
wow.
I did check to see that the most popular episode that we did, which I thought would be the backing tracks one, which it was for a little bit, but the how to find riches in the music industry was the one that really took the cake as far as people being interested. So be prepared for more clickbaity podcast episode titles in the future.
You won't believe this crazy trick to make your podcast numbers go up.
Podcasters hate him. I love that.
Yeah.
So what does your week look like so far, Dan? Like, what's coming up?
Well, I got on Monday, I have essentially the first of a few solo acoustic shows on my schedule. And so I've been prepping for that and building a set list and building up some repertoire. And it's really the first time I've done that in the modern era of my musicianship. So it's a big shift in terms of at least I think it's a big shift. It's one of the things that I'm grateful that we've had a chance to talk about and dig into a little further maybe today about the differences between a band show and a solo acoustic show. I predict that it's at least the set list that I've set up predicts that it's a different energy and a different whole kind of space. I'm guessing that the way that you interact with the audience is different. I've certainly seen that in the shows that I've watched. I don't know. What would you say are the differences between a full band gig and a solo acoustic?
Well, because we are very professional and completely plan all of these episodes out to the minute, I just so happen to have an acoustic gig tonight.
Hey, what are the odds?
Well, actually, the odds are kind of weird. This was I got a text on Monday from a guy who typically does an acoustic duo on Wednesday nights, and I filled in for him before, and he reached out again, was like, "Hey, can you do this again?" I was like, I got nothing else going on, so that is what we are going to be doing. So the main difference between what I do in a band capacity versus what I do in an acoustic capacity is that there's a lot less overlap material wise. Material is going to be quite different. Mm-hmm. Members Only will never play Wagon Wheel, but I'll play it. I'll play it tonight. I might play it twice. It's just kind of and it's also a different set of muscles. Because with a band, you've got so much behind you. I tend to sing way harder on acoustic gigs, just because there's nothing there but me. Now, in this case, this will be a duo, so I'll be backing my co-host up. And, what we did last time is I gave him my list of songs, so he knew what I knew. And then we kind of just kind of messed around with some stuff. He's like, hey, just, follow this. And so, for some of his country tunes, which I was not familiar with, I just kind of played along and maybe found a spot to drop a harmony in or whatever. Otherwise, it was just kind of like, it was fly by the seat of your pants kind of stuff. And it was a good time and fairly easy money. I didn't have to bring much gear and walked out with some cash. So I'm hoping that that's the case again for tonight.
That's good. It's interesting you talk about the difference in the performance aspect of it. I mean, for sure, in my prep work, which I've been doing a fair amount of, I get what you're saying about singing harder. It's you're the whole show. The other part is you got to hold the whole groove on guitar.
Yep.
Right. There's not a rhythm section behind you that you're sort of dancing on top of, like when you're a guitarist in a band. So, so my playing is way more percussive, way more, even my rhythm playing. I'm accentuating groove harder than I do when I'm playing rhythm with the band. It's very much a different beast to play guitar solo.
Yeah, I mean, acoustic guitar playing is a totally different beast because it is a much more dynamic instrument. Yeah. That's the cool thing about electric guitar is that it just makes noise and you just, you play a note and it goes. And if you want it to be softer, then you do other things. You don't necessarily play harder or softer necessarily. And if you play an electric guitar like you play an acoustic guitar, you're going to break your strings.
Yeah.
And if you play an acoustic like you play an electric, you're going to be a super boring person to watch because it does have so much. There's so much more to work with. Acoustically.
Yeah. Just the dynamic range of it. I'm one of my sort of stylistic go-tos is palm muting. I palm mute a lot, and I use it for dynamics in lead playing on electric a lot. So something I'm sort of that's the sort of the low end of the dynamic range on acoustic, and then I've been really exploring the whole, all the way to full shout. I mean, I have a dreadnought that punches like crazy, and to the point that I have wondered whether I could just forget the PA and just go fully acoustic. I'm not going to do that, probably for mostly for vocal reasons.
Then you would be singing,
singing real hard. Yeah. But the point is, an acoustic guitar certainly is a much more flexible thing.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm sitting around and I just want to play guitar, I would much rather pick up an acoustic than one of my electrics. Now, that's not always the convenient thing. Right now, my lay around guitar is my Tele, mostly because there's very little that my 3-year-old could do to hurt or destroy it. It is a plank of wood with strings attached to it, and not much else. And that does serve a function. I cannot put my Taylor out because he likes to go and turn the knobs and do the things that 3-year-olds like to do. And I'd rather him do that on a $500 Mexican Cabernita Tele that is just wood and strings than a $3,000 Taylor. that if he knocked over would like more than likely break the headstock off, which would be bad.
That would be bad.
So yeah. And then, so material is one thing. Vocally, it's different. Playing wise, it's different. It's also, to me, I prefer it to be a more collaborative experience. And what I mean by that is I put song lists out. Now, whether people use them or not kind of varies depending on the audience. But if you can get those song lists down at tables before you start, it opens the floodgates up a little bit, and it kind of it generates this. I ask for something and I give you something, and then I'm obligated to compensate you for doing what I asked you to do, kind of exchange.
So it's a list that you can take requests off of.
Yes, it is. Every song I'm comfortable letting people know that I know.
Gotcha.
Now, it's not every single song I know. It's still kind of cool to pull, songs out of thin air. Or if someone's like, hey, can you play this? You're like, oh, let me try. And you totally know the song. Then that makes them feel like you put the extra effort in to do a song that's not on your list. There's a psychology around the process, as far as, providing a service and that kind of deal. I've also taken it a step further because of the way that our society is today, and cash tips and that kind of thing. Not everybody carries paper money anymore. So I've actually put my Venmo and my PayPal accounts linked via QR code onto my song lists.
Smart. And people use that? That's
Some people use it. I have gotten a $50 tip.
Nice.
Via my PayPal, which was pretty sweet. And honestly, I typically don't get a lot of that, but just a single $50 tip was enough to be like, if that was not there, I wouldn't have gotten that.
Yeah.
Because I ended up talking to that person. Yeah. I ended up talking to the person, and they're like, I didn't have cash, but I was willing to, help you out.
That's cool.
And because I'm in a highfalutin part of town, the comment under the PayPal payment said, "Have brunch on me."
Yes, sir.
So yeah. So if you want to get free brunch, you need to put your PayPal info on your song list, or don't. Totally your choice.
Yeah. No, it's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. I may not have it together for Monday, but that's smart.
The other thing is, and I still have not done this, is that you probably need to laminate them.
Sure. Or
otherwise you print them out over and over
or
again.
Just have a lot. I mean, I imagine that list, as you adapt songs for acoustic, that list will grow.
Yeah. At my point, I actually have started to have to, what I'm trying to do is to keep it all on one page. So I've actually systematically removed songs from the list or replaced them.
Sure.
And that's again, one of those kind of things like, for the longest time I had Blue on Black by Kenny Wayne Shepherd on that list. When I started doing this back in the early aughts, I got that request all the time, but now not so much. Now, if somebody wants to hear Blue on Black, I'll play it.
Sure.
I know it perfectly well, but it's not top of mind. So, it hasn't aged as well as some of the other ones.
Right. Cool.
Yep. So, what kind of are you bringing your tower PA setup, or?
Yeah, I'm just gonna bring one of them. I have two Turbo Sound IP2000 1,000-watt towers. I'll just bring one of them, and I need to experiment a little bit. It's on my agenda today to go down to the practice space and set the rig up, and either I will go direct into the back of the speaker, which has preamps and stuff, and it's ready to take just a mic or just a direct from a guitar. Actually, I think I'm going to go through I'm going to use the TC Helicon vocal pedal. And experiment some with its effects. Having a Helix, I haven't really touched the guitar effects stuff. But having a harmonizer to use subtly, having the looper in that, I think that'll, as I prep for this, I'm going to find some places to, tastefully use those things.
Yeah. Loopers are, we covered it last episode. They are they're a tool that can be used, and I've seen them used to unbelievable effect. Yeah. I remember seeing a guy, did like a whole barbershop quartet on top of like his own vocal loopings. He ended up doing "Feeling Fine" by Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Now it didn't quite fit because it's got that weird kind of chord change during the "It's a New Dawn, It's a New Day," but it was close enough. But it was just kind of like boom, ba-dum, 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 and then he layered on top of that, and by the end he was singing the melody, and
That's nice.
it sounded really cool.
There was a video posted yesterday of a woman doing Everlong, Foo Fighters, mashed up with something else I didn't know, and she looped it on guitar, bass, keyboards, and drums, and it was clean, man. It was really precise work. It was very nice. So yeah, I think looping is a very cool thing, and there are certainly artists who it's their whole thing. I would want to maybe just lay in some thumping and muted strums, to just sort of sit in the background as I play over top of them, something like that.
Yeah, I've done it a couple of different ways. It is pretty easy to set up like a 4-bar loop of like a chord progression if you wanted. Like certain songs have like pretty iconic guitar leads that are, kind of ingrained, and you do need to, kind of know them. And I'll either lay down the loop and play over them, or sometimes I'll just sing them.
Yeah. Or whistle them, something like that. Yeah.
I still haven't figured out the whole whistling into the microphone thing. Is it like an off-axis thing? Yeah, you got to have some room between your lips and
you can't whistle right into the capsule, or you just get sound. You just get air noise.
Yeah,
you have to whistle past it and let it pick up the. Yeah. I'm opening with High and Dry, Radiohead. So to be able to hit that solo part, and what that implies is that I lay down the loop during the verse before it, probably while I'm singing over top of it. So I got to make sure the vocal pedal can pick up a loop that's just the guitar and not the vocals. I don't know quite how to configure that, but I'm sure it can be done.
Yeah. Either that, or again, you don't necessarily, you don't have to follow the structure. The name of the acoustic game is to fill space and time.
Right.
So if you took like a single pass after the verse to do the solo and then played over it, I don't think anybody would say anything.
That's true. Well, that's the other whole part of this is, with the Clanky Lincolns, we have had shows where we are wallpaper, but much more frequently we are the show. We command the attention. We demand the attention. We sort of won't let you not pay attention to us, and that's part of our whole ethos. And so, I predict that a solo acoustic performer, playing at a party like I'm going to be on Monday, or probably more of what I'll be doing will be wallpapery than would be if I had the whole band there. And that's fine. It's a matter of probably what I imagine. And again, I'm, coming to you to confirm this, is that there'll be moments of the show that I will build into something that grabs attention. And then there'll be moments where it just won't be that. And that'll be fine too.
Yeah. My experience has been that your wallpaperness 100% depends on the group of people that are in the venue that evening. Yeah. It really just depends. I'm going into this after I've done this particular gig a couple times before. People are there to drink, and this is one of the few places in the area where you can smoke in a bar, which I'm not excited about, but other people are pretty stoked about being able to sit at the bar and smoke.
Right.
And that's more than likely what they will be doing. There'll be lots of sitting, and we might have people paying attention. You might get that. My favorite is, putting your heart and soul into a song and then hearing this in the background just by itself, just.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm expecting.
Right. Your expression of trading notes for claps. It's a uneven trade there.
It is. Well, it can be.
Yeah. But it's fine. You're not, there are a lot of ways for people to enjoy you that they don't necessarily, have to be too demonstrative to know that they're enjoying you.
Well, and that's the other thing is that, it is up to the audience to kind of set that tone, and you can try and set the tone, but if they're not there with you, then
You are going to be wallpaper, and you also kind of need to be okay with that.
You do, and sometimes I'll surprise you. You know, last week we played the homecoming of our drummer's kids' high school, private Catholic high school,
right?
And we were out in the parking lot, and there was a lot happening.
Cigarettes.
Well, the parents were all around, so there was no sneaking cigarettes. But there were food trucks next to us, and like a mobile rock climbing wall on the other side of the parking lot, and all kinds of people tailgating. And we were playing good and loud. I had the whole thing cranked to cover this parking lot. It sounded really good. But these are high school kids, so for the most part, they were way too cool to express enjoyment.
Yep.
You know, all these kids like walking past us, sort of giving us sort of a glance. And I'm playing. We did, man, just like all the current ones. We did "Shut Up and Dance." We did "No Roots." We did. I can't even the one that it gets teenage girls every time. "Born This Way," Lady Gaga, and we would have it was really funny. It reminded me so much of my high school. We'd have 2 or 3 nerds, like bop along with us or dance, or the mascot came out and danced in front of us a couple of times, which was fun. But basically we were wallpaper, and we knew it, and it felt like we were wallpaper. We were kind of playing for ourselves. But man, when the show was over and we were packing up, the number of people who came up to us and asked for cards and told us they loved it. And I mean, just we got all of this amazing feedback at the end of the show, when I would have said for the most part, we were maybe kind of a nuisance for people, actually.
Yeah.
No, not at all. We were not at all a nuisance. They loved us. And we'll get some, we're going to be in the PTA newsletter with contact information and stuff. So I fully expect some follow-on gigs out of it. But boy, during the show, it really seemed like we were getting zero uptake from the audience. And you just you have to be good with that. You have to be, you got to be comfortable that you can't tell their enjoyment by how they look.
Yeah. It was one of the things that I had to I got some perspective this week about, we, when we did the Fanny Pack Friday thing this past week, and, attendance was down and money was kind of tight. And I was thinking, man, something, we didn't do something right, or, they didn't like it or whatever. But the reality of the situation is that the people that were there loved it, had a great time.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that's happened is we had some people shoot video of the last Fanny Pack Friday event, and he had shot some other videos as well. So I got all of that footage, and I'm kind of slowly pouring through it, and just seeing the crowd and hearing the reaction to stuff. There were things where you're so in your own head, you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
But hearing it and seeing it objectively just from the camera, they had a lot of fun. This was worthwhile. This is a good idea. So it was a good reminder that, what perception isn't always reality from our end.
Absolutely. Well, that and keeping your head in the game when, something potentially disappointing is happening in terms of turnout or crowd response. A very wise old public speaking coach of mine once said, you want to speak to the people who are there, not the ones who are not there.
Right.
So whatever concern you got about who's not here, that's just not helping you perform at this moment.
We had a situation like that once. We drove all the way up to Kiowa Island for a wedding, and it was at this beautiful hotel on the island, and there was this beautiful outside place, and we were set up inside a ballroom, and we played to nobody all night long. Because if you walked outside, there was the beach and the sunset and the wind was blowing and it was gorgeous, and they could hear us. And when we were done, they said nice things and they wanted more. That thing where people show up 15 minutes before your set's over, and then they're like, "Oh, why do you have to leave?" You're like, "Well, I've been doing this for 3 hours."
Where have you been? Yeah.
Well, and the real reality was that 2 of our guys had to drive back immediately after the gig because they had Sunday morning church gigs.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Is there any way you can play longer? I'll pay you." And I was like literally no. That kind of stunk. But yeah.
Cool.
So I'm fully prepared to. Actually, the other thing that I've got to figure out, and this may not register for your gig, is what am I going to wear? Mostly because again, it's a smoking bar, and it's what clothes am I willing to subject to?
Right.
Just complete rank stinkiness.
Right.
And I don't know if you can hear in my voice, I've got a little bit of a congestion situation. So I'm hoping that as long as I stay hydrated, I'll be able to make not quacky, honky noises all
that's
evening.
Good. Stay away from dairy.
Indeed. So I think it's time, Dan.
Episode 25. I mean, we've been teasing it long enough, haven't we?
I think so. So we have been talking about this off and on pretty much for every single episode that we've done. And I think it's time to go ahead and open the floodgates. And we'd love to hear your input as well. We've gotten a couple of these previously, but I think I would definitely love to hear more. So we are going to talk about our gigs from heck.
And in case you haven't been around before, we try to check the clean language button when we submit this. So it's the,
yes.
Heck is spelled with 2 L's, but it's pronounced heck.
Yes. We are a family-friendly bunch, though I can't even get my wife to listen to this. So
my wife listened to one episode and called me a nerd, and that was about it.
Yep. Sounds about right. So would you like to do yours first, or would you like me to?
I actually
to do
have
mine?
2. And one is from way back. So back in high school, I started, co-started the first student band. The school had a rock band that was the school's, and the drummer of that and I started our own band and started doing it was about half covers and half originals. And we played school events mostly. We had a very, one of those like young hip librarians who once a month had us play in the library at lunchtime, which was very fun. And, a good chunk of the school would come for it. So we got a booking to play a performing arts night at the school. And, looking back now, I suspect that the music teacher didn't love that we existed, because
most of them don't.
Because we were. I think he just felt like we competed with the school's band in a way that he didn't like. So one of the things that happened whenever we had a slot in a performing arts night at the school was we never got a sound check, like ever. The school band did, and choir had time to warm up, and the concert band had time to warm up, and I was in both of those too. But my band never got to even plug in before showtime. And so one of our very first gigs, there was this unstoppable feedback coming through my mic that we just couldn't, and we're live in front of audience and had no chance to, examine this beforehand. And so by the end of the show, I have taken my mic and moved back upstage away from the mains, so far that I'm basically up against the back curtain. And there were no monitors in this rig either. It was all front of house.
Of course not.
Because it's a high school rig. So I'm now way back in the back and can't hear anything, and didn't know any better at the time. I had no idea what a good monitoring environment was or would be like. The existence of monitors was not a thing I was aware of. So my singing was terrible, and we never got the feedback under control. And basically the whole show was about like the audience covering their ears. It was dire. And I was glad we only had time for 3 songs. Cause man, I walked off stage madder than I've ever walked off stage. It was really brutal.
Yeah.
A rough one. And, it was good to knock it out early. We had some really great shows with our own system. But that one was definitely formative in terms of like, you got to plow through when things are going wrong on the stage. You just got to find a way, man. You just got to find a way.
Well, the fact, it stuck with you from high school. I've got like my only real recollection from like a high school gig was there was, before I really knew how to sing, we were playing a show, and I screamed, like I literally screamed my voice out.
Yeah.
Like with 3 songs to go, like I went to go make a noise and nothing happened.
Yeah.
That was scary.
That's not great. So what'd you do?
I ran to the water fountain and drank some water and creatively melodied my way through the rest of the set.
Yep. I mean, one of the things that early music performance teaches you, I think, is that the show must go on. Because it must. It must. Indeed. I saw a band a few months ago where in the middle of a song, the guitarist just stopped everything and said, "I'm sorry, my guitar got screwed up. I have to stop." And it was like, are you kidding me? Are you like, what? And now I see that band on their social media. I haven't seen them play yet, but that guy's not with them now. So
I've had to do it. Like we've had a couple things where like technical stuff went wrong and there was no salvaging it, which sucks. But it should be avoided at all costs.
Yeah. Yep. So that's one for me. What do you got, gigs from Heck wise?
So I've got, other than the screaming so hard that my voice fell off, the one that comes to mind is, and it's not just like the worst gig of my life. It may have possibly been the worst night of my life. We had a situation right when Members was kind of like taking off, where we had a weekend of private events that were offered to us and no one was available. And like literally I was the only person who could do it. And I should have said, "I'm sorry, I can't get a lineup for these," but it was like $5,000 for the weekend and I couldn't turn it down. So I went to both of those gigs with all subs. So sub guitar player, sub bass player, sub drummer, sub female vocalist. Like I was the only one. And the anxiety behind it got the best of me on the Saturday night gig, which was at the Fox Theater, which is a very prestigious Atlanta venue. And that was back when we had liquor on our rider. And the dinner that we got was not very substantial. And so I drank what I thought was an okay amount of alcohol. And then I didn't have any for the rest of the night. Like after the second set, I didn't have any or anything like that. But after we loaded out, it became apparent that I didn't recall the first set at all. I refer to it as I browned out. I didn't black out.
Yeah.
But I browned out. And the worst part of it was we had the booking agency who did our stuff was actually providing production that night. So they not only witnessed it, but they recorded it. And so I had that entire set to painfully go back through. And it was very sobering. And I fear that it probably cost us business with that agency afterwards.
Sure.
So after that happened, I took liquor off the rider and kind of changed our approach to how we accept gigs and that kind of thing. And it was this is not a funny Gigs from Heck thing. It was a pretty
severe,
pretty catastrophic failure. And lots of teachable moments in a gig like that. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, the point is to learn. The more recent gig from Heck that I can talk about was similar. It was a gig I never should have taken. It was a private party for a Shriners Club in South Charlotte. And they found us on Thumbtack and approached us. And one of the things about my Thumbtack profile is that I have all our demos up. I try to make it really hard to not misunderstand who we are and what we do. But it turns out when some people say they want dance music, what they mean is they want swing and shag and not they want, pop and rock and funk, which is what we do. And so we got down there, and the staff, as they were kind of setting up, the head of the kitchen came out to me and said, you know, these guys are old, right? I said, well, I mean, I kind of got the woman who booked me said the ages range from like 25 to 70. And she said, well, that might be true, but I'd say the average is 70. Like, well,
oh man.
Okay. So, so we started playing, and it was, I mean, the degree of indifference we were met with was staggering. It was clear within a couple of songs that we were not the band that they wanted. And, we just stopped everything and kind of tried to regroup, and switch over into kind of our slower stuff. But even that they didn't want to slow dance. We put some kind of swing feel behind some things, and that also was not approved of. At one point, and this moment had some lasting repercussions. A woman came up to Justin, because he was the person nearest to where she could get him. We were playing on the floor in the corner of a ballroom, and she kind of grabbed his shirt and pulled him aside and said into his ear, "Why are you ruining all these songs?" She said, "Do you know we're not enjoying this?"
Wow.
And he just, I mean, I was watching this interaction happen, and I'm watching him get just furious. I don't think he said anything to her. I think he just walked back over to the mic, and we ended the song we were playing. I don't remember what it was, and just kind of called audibles for the rest of the night, or tried to. Finished out the first set, having, by the way, filled the floor with "Let's Get It On." That was the one thing that had any uptake at all. At the break, they did their traditional raffle. And after the raffle was over, pretty much all of these geezers cleared out. They stuck around to see if they won, and the winner was a happy person for their night, and the rest were not, and they all bailed. We had 4 or 5 people left after that break, and it'd been like a whole dining room full of elderly folks. I talked to the woman who hired us and said, do you want us to, I mean, we can play more. And she kind of shrugged, was like, well, I mean, if you want to. We all got to look at each other and say, do we want to? And I will say I had a fairly proud band leader moment right then. We end every show with Purple Rain. And I said, you know what? Hang on. No, we're just going to do Purple Rain. We're going to do Purple Rain for us. We're going to play Purple Rain. We're going to end the show with Purple Rain. And so we did, and we tore Purple Rain down, and the 4 people who were there all slow danced, and we actually ended the night feeling like us rather than us trying to adapt into something that's not us.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And then as we were packing up, the one who booked us was there, and I said, I really, I'm not, I don't think this went the way you hoped. And she said, well, I just wanted to mix it up. I was like, well, thanks for doing that, I guess. I just wanted to mix it up.
Yeah, she probably won't be mixing it up.
No. I think hopefully she learned. One of the things that venue does a lot of private parties and weddings and things that we would be a very appropriate band for. So we left them a bunch of marketing materials, and haven't heard a word. Would have been a super long shot to,
sure.
Surely our name is mud there.
You're not on the short list, as they say.
No, I don't think we are. And that gig was almost 2 hours away. Some of us spent the night in Charlotte, got a hotel and spent the night. So it was like, it barely paid for itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the least, it was the most unwanted, the most out of place and inappropriate we've ever been. And, that interaction that Justin had really, I've had to work hard to get him even willing to consider doing private events since then. That really soured him on that and really left him with like really some anxiety about people's events and whether we're right for it and whether, what the stakes are of that. And enough that I really, getting him to join us for the wedding we played a couple of months ago was tough. Like I
remember you saying that was a thing
it was. And it stemmed from that moment. Like he had no concern about it until that interaction, which so, demoralized him.
When it's such a pointed and, I mean, if I'm being frank, like a mean thing to say to a person.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's like here trying to, it's not like we're here deliberately to ruin your night. Thank you very much. Right.
Right.
Like, we're not having a great time here either. We'd like to do something about that. And that piece of feedback is just super not helpful. So thanks.
It sucks.
It was brutal. So I think I've got him won over. I think that wedding changed his mind about it. 'Cause it was so
fun.
Great. Just so great. And we were so exactly what they wanted.
Yeah.
But that one had some impacts. And, one of the things I learned is that I really need to, it's important to vet your client. Sometimes you're not a fit and you shouldn't, just like you with, when you had no band, like trying to make something happen that doesn't want to happen is, probably a mistake.
Yeah. We, one thing that we do especially for weddings, is we send out that song list. Like, that is a way that like an event like that could have been headed off at the pass.
Oh, listen, no, I sent her a song list. She never responded to it.
Oh, even better.
So I should have like right there said, I should have gotten her on the phone and gotten clear about, expectations.
But again, why would you like it? That it puts bad faith on the person throwing the event itself's end. And, most of us don't go into agreements like that,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and in terms of like, I wanted to mix it up, let's be honest, there was some bad faith there. She didn't actually represent what the show was very well. And now I have that in my pocket that I can actually say that to people. Like, we've been at events that we were not the right band for. I just want to make sure we head that off. And I feel like I can have that conversation now, having had that experience in a way that I didn't even know it was a thing I needed to be aware of before.
Yeah. So in you talking about that gig, I actually remembered another bad gig. So I'll go ahead and throw my second one in as well. This one is bad for other reasons. The band played fine. So this was for this is South Georgia in a place called Cordele, which actually my wife has family down there and we visit there all the time. And they have a little place called Lake Blackshear that has, they have live bands. The last time we were down there, Exile was playing there. If you remember, do you know Exile? They're the I Want to Kiss You All Over and Over and Again band.
Huh. All right.
And they were charging $25 a head to see Exile.
Well, all right.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So we were supposed to play down there. Pay wasn't great, but it was an excuse to go see family. So it was like, okay. And they said that there was, they'd give us a place to stay at the resort. And, it seemed like a fairly self-explanatory gig. It was it was covered, but it was like an open kind of like, it was kind of like it was like a metal structure, but it was covered, but only on top. It wasn't covered on the sides. Uh-huh. So we go there and we first go to check out our accommodations, which was literally like a cinder block shack in the middle of nowhere on this property. And we went in there and it stunk and there were bugs everywhere. And we were like, no, we're not staying here. Like the beds were broken. It was like, it was like Motley Crue had been there the night before. And every night before that, since this place opened. So we got that sorted out. They actually gave us a regular room, which was fine. And we get set up and everything's good. We got sound check and everything's fine. And then it rained. And when I say it rained, it poured. And we were going through a third party who didn't have our contract written down. But when it was all said and done, our gear was okay, but there was literally standing water on the stage. and holes in the stage for that matter. And we were like, we're not going on. And the manager's like, yes, you are. And so we went back and forth about that whole deal. And while this is happening, it's peak mayfly season.
Ooh.
And I don't know if you know what mayflies are, but if you live anywhere near like a coastal waterway or, bodies of water in the South, there are these horrific bugs and they're attracted to light. And guess what stages are covered with?
Mm-hmm.
And so there were mayflies all over everything, all over the drums, all over the lights, all over everything. So they get the stage dried off and we played like a protracted set. But like everything's covered in bug guts and it was 95 degrees at like 10 p.m. with like 100% humidity. It was just miserable. And half of the guys were like, we're not staying. They just got in the car and left. And then we stayed, but had to get up really early to get back for something else. So it was like we got 3 hours of sleep and then drove back. And it was just like, ugh. It was not my favorite. And then we, our agent guy was like, hey, how'd that gig go? I was like, not good. And they're like, yeah, we're probably not going to ask any of our other acts to go down there again.
Yeah.
So we were the ones with the distinction of being the last one from that agent's. No, they're, like I said, Exile played there.
Well,
and they've actually, like, since then they built an actual stage and the production's a bit better, but
that's good.
It's like a 3-hour drive. And now Convoy played there once and went over like gangbusters. Other than the fact that we were doing that exact same show in 3-piece suits, which was a hot, sweaty mess. But man, they loved it.
I bet.
So, but yeah, I mean, there's still mayfly guts on our Rubik's cubes. It's just, it's gross.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Gigs from heck.
Gigs from heck.
You're gonna have a gig enough. You'll have gigs from heck.
It's true. Well, like I said, last time I challenged you to share this with your bandmates and for those bandmates to share it with their bandmates, and it worked. So I will extend that challenge. Continue to share this podcast with your friends, and we've got a nice little backlog of topics and conversations to have. And we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up at coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. We'd love to get your input.
Send us in your gigs from heck. We'll read them.
Yes. We've done a couple before and we will continue to do so. I remember like when I was little, my sister would get 17 magazine and none of it was like worth anything except for like this one section, which was called Trauma Rama, which was just teenage girls sending in embarrassing stories about themselves. And that was like, I would like sneak into her room and steal those just to read them. So it is compelling, compelling entertainment. So,
and always something to learn, right? So
yeah, totally.
Plus we'll plug the heck out of your band. So
yeah, absolutely. If you want to hear your band, you can, like I said, we will, for a nominal fee, we will say whatever you want us to say about your band. And then you can say that Cover Band Confidential, you can put that on your website.
You bet.
X Band is the most generous lovers. Give the best back rubs.
That's right. The
make
risotto
the best grilled cheese sandwiches.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. So that's going to do it for us. I'll go ahead and call it. From Atlanta, Georgia, I am Adam Johnson.
Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
And you have been listening to the Cover Band Confidential Podcast, episode 25. Woo-hoo. Have a good week.